Hi guys. So first off, a huge thank you to everybody who volunteered to be a beta reader. By the time this video goes up, I will have messaged all of my first round beta readers. For those of you that are new to the newsletter crew, the way it works is there will be a newsletter sent out every other Monday, and there will always be a video attached to the newsletter, which basically encompasses some kind of new topic that has to do with my book, Peace and Turmoil. This week, we're getting into one of the countries, one of the main countries in the world of Peace and Turmoil, and that would be Sadie. I wanted to start with Sadie specifically though, because this is the country that, the character that in book one kind of is the main character, although there's multiple main characters. He's one of the most significant ones, and that would be Dietrich Haraldson. He comes from the country of Sadie. When Peace and Turmoil starts, Sadie has been freed from slavery for only approximately 30 years. Sadie is a desert kingdom to the very far east. When you look at it on the map, you'll see that it's a lot of desert that stretches across this particular part of the continent, and then kind of unfortunately for them, they don't have easy access to trade to the western kingdoms because there is a huge mountain range known as the Dividing Wall that separates them from the west. Because of this huge divide, Sadie and its neighboring kingdom to the north are known as the East, where the kingdoms to the west of the Dividing Wall are often referred to as the West. Sadie and Prianthia, the northern neighbors, do not get along, as Prianthia was the country that used to hold Sadie in slavery. But despite the fact that it is so difficult to reach those western kingdoms, Sadie has no interest, obviously, in trying to establish any kind of trade with the kingdom that used to hold them enslaved. So the king, Harold Rorickson, does everything he can to try and establish some kind of trade with the western kingdoms. While most Sadeans find this particular idea to be very good because the western kingdoms are very wealthy in comparison to them, there is a particular cult of people known as the Redeemers who feel that the western kingdoms are the reason that the eastern kingdoms, Prianthia and Sadie, have always butted heads, and they want nothing to do with the West. It's always really important to me in my book that despite it being fantasy, it is a reflection of our own world, and not specifically any one particular country or anything like that, but just times throughout history, times that are going on right now. We've definitely seen some countries wanting to reach out and create allies, and that causes so much chaos between other kingdoms, between other countries, between other groups of people. And that's what this group of the Redeemers are. They're an insurgence that feels that Prianthia and Sadie should band together, that they should forget their past. They honestly feel that Prianthians and Sadeans would be at their best if they didn't rely on the West and they learned to be allies with one another. King Harold is in no place to forgive his former captors. He very vividly remembers what it was like to be in slavery, and he has no interest in listening to the Redeemers' cause. As a result, the Redeemers think the best way to try and implement their plans is to overthrow Harold and his family, and do that by assassination. When the book begins, they have yet to be successful with this. Harold and his children Dietrich and Abaddon and his wife Lenore are all still alive, but there's a lot of things going on within the family. Dietrich, as the eldest son, would normally be the one to be heir to the throne, but he has taken on the role of trying to seek out the Redeemers kind of from the outside. So he lives among his people instead of in the palace with his family. He lives as one of his people in disguise, and he does everything he can to hunt the Redeemers when you first get introduced to him. Dietrich has been doing this since the time he was a young teenager, and while his kingdom knows that he is trying to do everything he can to keep them safe from the Redeemers, they don't actually remember or know what he looks like because it was so long ago, so many years, and he was so much younger, so they have no idea what he looks like. Dietrich is then often referred to as the Assassin Prince, or the Cloaked Prince, or the Shadow, where his brother Abaddon is considered the Genius Prince. Abaddon has an uncanny ability to create elixirs and cures that are sought after in the West, so he's kind of single-handedly opened up Sadie's economy. Despite the two brothers doing everything they can to keep their kingdom afloat, it is still a very fragile kingdom. It is still trying to get on its feet. It is still on its first king since its freedom, and it definitely has its fair share of enemies, both people within this insurgents, the Redeemers, and from their former captors Prianthia, who would love to have them enslaved again. As far as what the people of Sadie look like, they are known for having very green eyes and very dark skin, generally black hair or very, very dark hair. Because they live in a desert kingdom, they tend to dress in robes or very loose-fitting clothing, but they cover a lot of their skin, including often their faces, which is part of why, one, it's easy for Dietrich to live in disguise, but two, it's easy for them to have enemies in disguise as well. Most of the architecture in Sadie is clay buildings that have flat rooftops, and occasionally, if it's some kind of important place like a hospital or the palace or some kind of religious building, there will be domes. Most of the buildings though are made of clay, and they're very, very close together, and intentionally close together because the canopies that go across the clay buildings are meant to provide shade for the people that walk around the city, for the marketplaces, things like that. Sadie was definitely one of my absolute favorite kingdoms to write because Sadie is in such a fragile state. It's very edge of your seat. It's a lot of, you know, kind of that built up energy all the time. It was really, really interesting for me to try and figure out how to depict that, what their kingdom would be like, what their customs would be like. It was just very different from some of the other kingdoms that are already very established and very artsy and ritzy. Anyway, that's it for this week's video. As always, thank you so much for geeking out with me. I can't wait for the next newsletters video when I really get to dive into Dietrich's character and his brother, and then, you know, I'm just excited to get to talk to you guys about all this. That's it though. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.